Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of Drumming in the Trenches podcast with me, Ari the Canadian, and Brian over there.
I'm right here. Hi, that's me. Today we have a super awesome guest. He is the drummer for Sugarmore, Voices of Extreme, a left-handed drummer who is already my best friend, Jordan Cannata. Welcome to the show. Hello,
everybody.
What's up? Going? Oh, and this episode is brought to you by Collision Drumsticks. Use the code Trenches10 at checkout to receive 10% off your purchase. I should have said that before I introduced you.
I'm impressed. You rehearsed.
Hello. Yeah, I know. Hello. I try. Hello. It's my customer service voice, even though I never worked in customer service. So how's it going, Jordan? How you doing, man?
Good, man. Living life.
Absolutely.
As best you can. Being in New York COVID.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh, man.
Doing good.
Good. Thank you for being on the show, man. This is really cool to have you on here. We're kind of starting to flex our muscles a little bit and get some bigger names on the show, and this is pretty cool, man. I've been a fan.
Then you just took a slide down when you brought me on.
I mean,
fumble. Okay.
Filling it, or taking over for AJ Pero and Mike Portnoy is no easy task, but we'll get into that later.
Right.
So why don't we start off by just kind of how'd you get started playing drums, and what were some of your early influences?
I started when I was 8 years old. I've been a music lover since I was a little kid. It started out pretty much my dad kind of giving his entire CD collection to my brother and I, and it was all classic rock stuff, everything from the Beatles to AC/DC to Van Halen to Guns N' Roses. It was all of the the awesome rock stuff that I think is pretty typical classic music these days.
Absolutely.
But it kind of started. My brother got into music before I did. He wanted to play guitar. And he was asking my parents for a guitar for a while. And then my mom kind of told my dad that you can't get Jared one without getting me one. So they, for Christmas one year, bought us both guitars. And I played it for maybe 2 days, and then I just put it down. And then we went out to a Japanese restaurant, and I took the chopsticks home with me. And I laid out a bunch of books and binders on my floor, and I just started banging on them while listening to music. And at that moment, I kind of realized, I think I want to try to play some drums. So for my following birthday after that, my parents came home with a drum kit, and it kind of just never stopped from there. But the drummer that made me want to do it was Ringo Starr. I fell in love with Ringo. I fell in love with the Beatles in general, but there was just something about the grooves that he was playing. I think that these days he gets a little overlooked because of the way that drumming has evolved over the years.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you go back and you listen to some of those classic grooves that he was doing, whether it's I've Come Together, or even go back to Ticket to Ride and all that kind of sloshy stuff he was doing. Nobody was doing that at the time. So there was just something about him that hit me, and it made me want to pick up the sticks.
And I remember seeing when he was inducted into the some wing of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a couple of years ago, they put together a tribute video, and I remember Taylor Hawkins from the Foo Fighters mentioning that he kind of washed or swished the hi-hat instead of just hitting straight down, and kind of gave it that signature Ringo-y.
Totally. It 100% was his thing. And I found out years later, which I loved even more, that he's a lefty.
Nice. When you started out, did you start out as a lefty, or did you are you left-handed with everything else as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm 100% lefty. So when I started playing drums, it just felt natural to set it up lefty. I know a lot of lefties play on a righty kit, but
I started that way.
A lot do, you know. I guess because it's the more standard way to set up a drum kit, I guess. But I don't know. I didn't really have anybody at the beginning try to push me in one direction or another. So just being a lefty, I thought, set it up lefty.
Well,
So,
and when I started out there, I mean, you know, we had before we started, we had mentioned that, you know, left-handed drummers are a very rare breed. And I mean, I was never told or shown what the difference was. You know, I started doing it by like mirroring like Kiss videos, and I just naturally kind of had leftover right. And then, you know, when I got behind a drum set, I'm like, wait, this is fucking backwards from what I think is right. So like, it wasn't until high school when I got my own drum set that I was like, I'm going to try and do it like this way. And then it just immediately clicked right in.
Nice. Yeah, I know so many that feel natural kind of just going on the righty kit, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't ever actually have any musicians in my family before my brother and I. We were the first. You know, my dad is a music lover, but he never played. So we didn't have anybody really we didn't really have any visual reference to try to set anything up the way someone else did, you know? So when I first started playing, I basically just kind of was given instructions on this is the way a drum kit is set up, and if you're lefty, reverse it. So at that point, I just kind of said, okay, well, I'm lefty, let's just do it that way. And in the big scheme of things, I mean, I think I'm happy that I did, because I feel like if I went the other way, I might have been kind of fighting my nature. But then again, I mean, there's restricted. You know, but then again, I mean, listen, there's a ton of lefties that do the open hand. I mean, Simon Phillips, you know, he plays open-handed, and I don't think anybody's going to think that he's limited. So, you know, but at least for me, I felt like just, you know, follow my own nature, and it worked out, I think, in the end.
Yeah. You're a fucking powerhouse, dude. Like, I tell you what, seeing some of these videos, I wish that I had as much energy playing as you do in one of your hands. Like, it's crazy.
So I'd really like to know, because we've had a lot of drummers that have come through the show that haven't had a lot of musical education, and you went to Berkeley. I would love to hear what you like, a little bit of the story about that and how that impacted where you're at now.
Berkeley was big for me. I didn't actually graduate. I wasn't there for the full 4 years. I left a band I was playing in at the time, had some opportunities, and decided, you know what, this is what I'm working toward anyway, so let's just go chase after them. But that being said, Berkeley was an eye-opener for me in a lot of ways, because I think in my teen years, I think I was a little more closed-minded. You know, I liked what I liked. I didn't really venture off into to too many other genres or too many other, you know, I kind of just had my set path and I followed it. And once I got to Berkeley and I started studying all these extra things, especially jazz, I never really focused on jazz a lot as a teenager, and Berkeley is very, very heavily jazz oriented curriculum. So, you know, I started really delving into jazz and Latin and funk, and it really opened my eyes, not just as far as, oh, I had all these new people that I found and fell in love with, but I also kind of figured out what some of my weaknesses were. That's and kind of started to realize, like, oh, there are certain things that, because I've been closed-minded, I didn't really even know that some of these approaches existed. So it definitely opened my eyes and kind of allowed me to veer off and find new things. But then the other thing that was big was Berkeley requires every single drummer to take piano classes.
Really?
Yeah, they require. They don't make you take it throughout the entire, you know, they don't make you take it throughout the entire 4 years, but they do make you take at least a few piano classes, because as drummers, we're the only musicians that don't learn melodic theory. We only learn the rhythmic theory. And their opinion is that the drummers need to understand what everybody else is talking about.
That's very fair. That's fair.
It was, for me, it was really big. I found out that they would require that a little while before I went. So I started taking some piano lessons for about 2 years before I went to Berklee to get ahead of it. And
that's smart.
And it really was big for me because for years I've been playing in bands since I was a kid, and it was always, I guess most drummers can say that it's a little hard to communicate sometimes with the other musicians, because you can communicate as far as when you play the verse, play the chorus, play the bridge. But if, the guitar player, tells you, when I hit that C chord, no, you don't, So
Right.
when you kind of get a feel for the theory and the melodic theory and, the chord progressions and the way that they approach things, it really helped me get a better understanding of what everyone else was doing, and also helped me get a better understanding of the theory behind songwriting, because a lot of the projects that I like to do and I'm a part of, I do co-write with the other musicians that are with me.
Yeah.
So as a drummer, you don't do maybe somebody's trying to figure out, where should we go after this progression, or what can we do here, and how does this relate in the key, and how do we change? There's a lot of times where the drummer can sometimes feel left out of that. So Berklee kind of forced me to get a little more familiar with that aspect of it. And so it really helped me with my musical communication with everybody else that I deal with.
I think that definitely segues really well into being you're a session drummer, doing all these different bands, being able to just communicate with every other musician that you need to and help you plug yourself in, so you're not out to dry, essentially. You're just boom,
Right.
ready to play. You already know what's going to happen. You can predict it, and you can play it efficiently.
Right. Yeah. It made a very, very big difference, I think, in that world. And then, yeah, like I said, I kind of started to learn what some of my weaknesses were as a drummer, and figure out, okay, so these are the things that I'm really strong with. These are the things that I'm weak with. So I need to focus on these things over here. And it was also eye-opening too, because where I lived, it wasn't really a huge music school. I didn't go to like a private music high school or anything. I didn't go to any like prep, summer music prep courses or anything like that. And a lot of the other people that were going to that school did. They would go to the summer Berklee prep classes, or they went to, music and arts high schools. And I didn't really do that. So there weren't many musicians in my high school that were taking it super serious and wanted to push forward with it as their career. So it was a very small group that we were kind of like the only ones, and I didn't have other people. So it was almost kind of like that big fish in a little pond scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I got to Berklee, and I was like, oh, I'm the little
this
fish.
pond is huge, bro.
You're the minnow in the shark tank all of a sudden.
Right, exactly. And because now I'm seeing all these people that have all these different strengths, like maybe my double bass, my speed might have been, off the charts, for I guess my age or whatever at a certain time. But then I'd go and see this other guy who's got these jazz chops or gospel chops that I didn't even know existed. And it was like, okay, I need to figure that out now.
Yeah. Well, and as far as, like Ari had touched on, you being a session drummer and being in all these different bands, as a budding session musician myself, I'm realizing that it's definitely benefited from my liking of so many different styles and practicing so many different styles, so that you can, just kind of drop in any specific situation, get a lot of metal drummers that think, metal is true and all this and that, which I mean, hey, but sometimes chill out a little bit. it'll make everything as a whole.
Sometimes less is more.
Well, sometimes I mean, you look at like a band like Slayer. I mean, South of Heaven, like that was a total swap from Rain and Blood, but right. it was still cool.
Yeah, it's all about the situation. It's all about that. Like there's so many situations, especially in the metal world. I think that a lot of people get really caught up in the metal world and just basically in speed. right? How fast can you do your double bass? How fast can you play around the kit and do your quads and all that stuff? But then go back and listen to some of the drummers that aren't necessarily focusing on speed all the time, and it's amazing. I mean, one of my favorites is in the metal world that I think, hey, there's my boy. One of the guys that I think doesn't focus on speed a lot, but his parts are perfect for every song, Vinnie Paul.
Oh,
I mean, like, just think about some of those Pantera tunes where he's not going straight double bass the whole time. He's playing some simple stuff, but those songs would not have the impact that they do if he did just speed through them.
Cemetery Gates, prime example. I mean, yeah.
Or just even Walk, right? It's boom, and I mean, that song would not have the impact that it does if he didn't just say, "I'm going to do the most simplistic beat on the planet," right there.
Yeah.
So sometimes there are times when
sometimes groove is overlooked for the sake of trying to look cool, and groove is cool sometimes.
Yes,
so you're in a couple of bands right now. Why don't we start with Sugarmore? Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so Sugarmore is a really fun one. It kind of gets me out of the heavy zone. It gets me out of the hard rock and metal world a little bit. It kind of started off. It's where we basically take pop songs and we turn them into these really intense fusion versions where we throw in elements of rock, pop, jazz, R&B, funk. Like, we try to just do this really intense fusion versions of pop songs. And it started off, we did one of Thriller, and it was my brother, myself, and our two friends, Dom and Dan, who are cousins. So it's this kind of interesting family dynamic.
Nice.
And so we just got together. It was the singer Dom called us up and said, "Hey, I want to try to put this thing together for Thriller. I have this idea. You want to do it?" And we said, "Yeah." And we had so much fun doing it that we all just, after we recorded it, we all just looked at each other and said, we need to do this a little more often. We need to make this a thing.
Let's do this more often.
So we kept doing it, and we actually just last weekend recorded and filmed the fifth single, and after that we have another cover planned, and then we're gonna actually start branching off and doing some originals after that. But we have two more covers that we're gonna do first. But yeah, it's really cool. It's like I said, it kind of weaves in and out of all these different genres, and we try to keep it really catchy, but at the same time find moments for everybody to go off and rip it up a little bit, which is it's refreshing. It's a cool way to really get technical, but also try to groove. Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah, one of the videos that I saw that definitely caught my eye was that 7 Rings.
Slaps. It slaps, bro.
That was crazy when you were kind of taking your hand and kind of making a trap snare snare sound. Yeah, that was really cool. I'm like,
oh, thank you, man.
Oh, that's a way to do it. Because I mean, I got like one of those pancake drums to do like the 808 drop.
Yeah.
Like in an auxiliary setting, but I was kind of trying to figure out how to do the other like trap hip hop type sounds on an acoustic drum set, because
the muted thing works really well. It's cool for like kind of getting that subdued sound, and then when like the chorus kicks in, you go to the full blast. A lot of drummers these days also like to put a splash cymbal on top of their snare.
I've seen that.
Yeah. I've done that too, and that does work. You got to have the right sounding splash for it. Sometimes some work better than others, but it does give you a little bit of that cool like metallic hip hop kind of sound for it. But that one was a fun one. That was the only one that we did during the whole pandemic. Everything else we did was before that, and then now that things have loosened up a little bit, we were finally able to get into a room together, and like I said, we just did the 5th one, and it was nice to finally get back in a room together and do it as a unit.
Yeah, for sure.
Sugarmore is a fun one.
Nice. That's a good transition to Voices of Extreme. I mean, you got a long list of stuff you can go on.
I've been busy, which is good. Thanks.
That is a very good thing.
But Voices of Extreme is more of like a classic rock type sounding band. That I joined them. I want to say about 2 years ago, and we're going to be heading into the studio pretty soon, probably within the next, I want to say, month or two, to put together a new album, which nice. I'm excited about because I'm not on their previous record. I've done some touring with them, but all of the released music was done before me. So I'm excited.
Their other drummer was also a lefty, wasn't he?
Yes, that was.
See, that was what was throwing me for a loop. I'm like, that looks like Jordan, but his hair's really short. What happened?
No, it was trippy for me too, because I usually show up when I don't really know a band and I'm starting to work with somebody new. I usually show up and I set up my stuff up lefty, and they look at me and they're like, "Why is everything in the wrong spot? What's going on?" I showed up.
Don't worry, it all sounds the same.
I showed up to the first rehearsal with these guys, and there was like no reaction. They were used to it. And then I found out that the previous drummer was lefty, and I was like, "Oh, okay, now it makes sense." But yeah, it was ironic that he was also a lefty drummer. Yeah.
And what an incredible amount of like serendipity that the lefty gets replaced with the lefty. It's hard to find one. I'm almost positive at this point that I'm the only like true lefty drummer in the entire state of Michigan. So to have a lefty replace a lefty, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was definitely a strange thing, and I met the previous drummer shortly after, and he even said the same thing, that he was blown away that another lefty took the spot, because he even said, like, I was totally expecting to see a Voices of Extreme drum kit look backwards to me, but it looks the way that I did. Because he also, whenever I play with them, I play 1 up, 2 down, and I believe he also did the same thing, 1 up, 2 down. So
he's like, he did, yeah.
So he's like, it just looks like you're playing my kit.
Yeah, no kidding.
Now,
it was kind of funny.
So what specific, you said classic rock feel, and I was definitely kind of getting an AOR, old Boston type of vibe from it. What type of like specific influences do they draw from, or do you all draw from with that music?
We're all over the map with it. I think for me, in more recent years, I've drawn from more modern rock stuff recently. I mean, obviously, I go back to all the classic stuff, but in recent years, I've been a little more modern. And those guys also have recently, I think, delved into some more modern stuff. But I know that they're very, very influenced by Zeppelin and Van Halen and the Who. So I would say those are probably the 3 that I associate it with it the most. But every single person in the group has, such a wide variety of what they listen to that it's kind of hard to figure out specifically where they draw from. But I think vocally, I hear a lot of Robert Plant in our singer Don.
Definitely.
But as far as his musical influence as a guitar player, I know he's an Eddie Van Halen. He's a huge Eddie Van Halen fan. So I would say it's, somewhere between Zeppelin, Van Halen, the Who. Those would probably be the closest that I could draw from.
Nice. And this is a power. This is like a trio.
Power trio. Yeah.
So I love it. I'm in a blues trio myself, and as of a couple months ago, Ari is also in a trio.
Nice.
Yay. But so you've been in multiple situations where, like with Sugarmore, you got a keyboard player added to the regular guitar bass drums. With Adrenaline Mob, you had a dedicated lead singer and a guitar player and a bass player and all these different configurations. What do you feel like is the biggest thing that is different as far as your writing is concerned when there's like only 3 of you? Like, do you feel like you need to play more, less, louder, softer, like, you know, just when you're writing the parts, because there's a lot more space that you have to occupy in the music?
Yeah, it does definitely change things a little bit, especially with, you know, the way the world is now. I think, like, if you go back, right, we go back to the 60s and the 70s and all the classic stuff, whether it was a trio or, you know, quartet or however many people were in it, you basically hear each musician playing their part. But now everything gets overdubs and harmonies and, you know, all sorts of different things. So when you're recording music, you don't want to limit yourself. You don't want to feel like you have to, well, there's only 3 of us, so it can only sound like 3 of us. So when you record, you don't necessarily shy away from having a rhythm guitar track and a lead guitar track or things like that. But at the same time, we also, at least Voices of Extreme doesn't use any samples. So we do have to find ways to tweak a song to make sure that it sounds as full as it can live with just 3 people. And for us, the biggest thing about that is that whenever Don, our guitar player / singer, is doing a guitar solo, there's no rhythm guitar under him. So that really right. So that's where myself and our bass player have to kind of weave and try to find a way to get a little extra energy. And it depends on the situation. I mean, sometimes it could be playing a little bit busier to fill it out, but that could be tricky because you don't want to walk all over the guitar part.
Right.
But
you want to take
sometimes, right. But sometimes it could be as simple as, you know what, maybe just playing a little more powerful. Like maybe on the recording, the drum groove underneath it was on a closed hi-hat, but live maybe do it on an open hi-hat just to fill it out the sound a little more. You know, so it could be something as simple as opening a hi-hat instead of closing it, playing on a crash instead of on a ride. It could be something as simple as that. And then other times, maybe get a little busier, throw some fills in, or maybe even it could be done with, not even at my end, it could be done on the bass player's end. Maybe in that moment, the bass player will turn on some distortion so that it kind of gets a little bit more full, dirty guitar sound, you know? So there's a whole bunch of different approaches to it, but it's usually pretty minimal. We try to keep it subtle because we don't want to walk all over each other. You know, it's definitely, if it's a guitar solo, we want to fill out the sound under him, but that's still his moment. You know, you don't want to take away from that. But yeah, it's usually just little subtle things like that, playing a little more powerful open hi-hat on a crash, something like that, and maybe changing the bass tone a little bit for that moment, things like that.
Oh, that's good advice to just keep for other drummers that are going to watch this. It's good advice for them to be just cognizant of the situation and how to best
situational awareness.
Yeah, and that kind of thing too. I mean, you know, there's always learning curves with that. You know, you kind of you figure those things out as you go. I think that, you know, I mean, you know, if you take lessons or you have mentors or stuff, they definitely help you with a lot of that. But there's definitely something to be said about, you know, kind of getting thrown into the fire and learning on the job. And you definitely learn some of that as you go. And so now, like, there were definitely times when I first joined Voices of Extreme, that was not the first time that I had been in a one guitar player scenario. Because a lot of the bands that I play with are always one guitar player. So the drummer and bass player have to fill out the sound. But it was the first time I was in a scenario where the only guitar player is the singer. And there are moments where, you know, he's going to focus on singing this part and he's going to maybe do something else on the guitar here. He's going to find ways to make things work for himself, and we have to play off of it. So it definitely, you know, the more you do it, the easier it gets to kind of sense how things have to change. And that also comes from the chemistry too. The more you play with a certain person, you get a feel for what they're doing, you know, and that takes time. Sometimes you click with somebody like this, and sometimes you have to go through a few shows to feel each other out.
Well, and Ari, you're like I had mentioned, you're in more of a newer, more recently power trio. So this is some good shit for you to consider. Maybe get Mike maybe get Mike some toys to play with.
He got an overdrive pedal and he's been using it on this distortion stuff. So everything Jordan is speaking to, I've come to realize that we lost our rhythm guitarist and just kind of had to make it work and fill the space in where it needed to be filled and keep what was quiet, keep it quiet. So it's definitely a learning curve.
Necessity is the mother of invention. You don't really,
not wrong.
sometimes you don't really, sometimes you don't think about things until you're forced to, and then it's okay. I got to make this work, and that's when the ideas start to click. You know,
that's where the best ideas come from, under pressure like that.
Absolutely. But yeah, as far as the guitar solo thing, most of the bands I played in over the years have been single guitar player bands. So I've had the benefit of having to do that, take that kind of approach for a very long time now. So that kind of comes pretty naturally to me now because I've been thrown into that scenario since I was a teenager.
I've done it so long, it's second nature now.
I wouldn't say second nature, but it doesn't faze me as much to get thrown into the situation. I feel ready for it when it happens.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk a little bit about Adrenaline Mob. You guys haven't really done a whole lot for quite a few years now, but you know, with a band like that, I mean, you know, Russell Allen from Symphony X, Mike Orlando, who is like God tier, John Moyer on bass. How the hell did you get that gig, dude? Like, how did you get that?
You know, it was a whirlwind. I mean, it came out of nowhere for me. I had no idea it was coming. Basically, for a really long time, my brother and I were playing in a band called J-Rad for many, many years. That was our mainstay. And we hadn't done a lot of touring, but we had done a ton in the Northeast region, tri-state area. And we had gotten the opportunities to play with open for a whole bunch of different bands, especially in the classic rock world, ranging from, you know, like 70s to 80s, early 90s. And one of the bands that we had played with a whole bunch over the years was Twisted Sister. And so we developed a pretty good relationship with them. They were always just super nice to us, really became good friends. And as you know, AJ Pero, Twisted Sister, was the drummer in Adrenaline Mob before me. And, you know, as we all know, he passed away. But I don't remember exactly how many years, how long it was between when he passed and when they decided to get it back together. Some time had definitely gone on. It wasn't a super quick transition. But basically, Russell Allen was, he was overseas. He was in Europe doing a festival, and Twisted Sister was on that festival. And I don't know exactly how the conversation happened, but Russ had mentioned to some of the people in the Twisted Sister camp that they were looking to start back up and they were looking for a drummer. And some of the guys in the Twisted camp recommended me and said, "Hey, listen, you should check this guy out." And you know, all of Adrenaline Mob. I mean, well, at least Mike and Russ. Russ is a Jersey guy, and Mike is a New Yorker. So they knew that they were going to be looking for somebody that's at least relatively close, you know. So those guys knew that I was in New York, and they told him to you know, look me up. And ironically, a bass player that I used to play with was teching for Twisted Sister at the time.
Nice.
So they said to him, like, "Listen, we all know this guy. You should check him out. And that guy over there has his phone number." So I guess Russ and Mike, they checked out some videos of me, and then one day I got a call. I was working at a local music school giving drum lessons, and while I was between lessons, I got a call from Russell Allen. And
wow.
it was like the most surprising, shocking thing on the planet. And you know, he asked me if I was interested, which of course I was.
Oh, yeah,
and so
let me think about it real quick.
Let me get back to you.
Yeah, you know, I was like, you know, I got some things going on. No. It was immediately yes, please. But yeah, so he asked me if I would be interested, and he was just ramping up his schedule with Trans-Siberian Orchestra at the time, because it was in that fall winter zone. So he reached out to me, but after that, when I was going through the whole audition process, that was when I started talking with Mike a little more, and we kind of did everything remotely. I had gone through this kind of multi-step audition with them, filmed videos of myself, and then I went into Mike's studio and recorded some stuff there. And Russ was out with TSO, so he was kind of sending Russ everything that we were doing together. And then shortly after that, that's when they both gave me the call and said the gig was mine, and that was when I almost peed my pants.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. First of all, fucking feather in the cap to have Twisted fucking Sister recommend you of all people for a drumming job. Like that's pretty cool. But I gotta ask, I mean, the caliber of drummers they had before you. I mean, obviously AJ Pirro, but also Mike Portnoy starting the whole thing, and even Chad Ziglia from Breaking Benjamin filled in for them for a couple of years. Like, I mean, I know the answers. I know what the answer probably is, but like, did you feel like how much pressure were you feeling to like step into these gargantuan shoes into this band?
I was terrified. I was, because so it was, it was interesting. I mean, I was definitely, I've always been confident in myself, and I've always been confident in my ability. So I didn't necessarily go into it thinking like I can't play this stuff. It was a lot of work. I mean, it's Mike Portnoy track, so it was a lot of work to learn all of his parts and AJ's too. I mean, a lot of people, they know AJ's drumming from Twisted Sister, which is also great, but he was taking a back seat a lot of the time in Twisted Sister. You go listen to what he did with Adrenaline Mob and you go, oh, this guy can play. So yeah. It was definitely daunting to get into that scenario, but the biggest thing that was kind of scary to me was, these guys were my heroes. I grew up, Portnoy is one of my biggest influences of all time. He's one of my favorite drummers ever. And AJ Pirro also, and not to mention they're both Long Islanders like myself. So on top of them being my heroes, it's even a little closer to home because they're local heroes as well, even more so than the rest of the world, I think. So for me, it was daunting because I still get weirded out when people put my name in the same sentences there because they're my heroes. But I was nervous, I think, especially because when you're stepping into like Portnoy's shoes, he has such a diehard loyal fan base that I was worried that will these people accept me? Will they accept that I'm sitting in this chair instead of him? Because I mean, he's Mike Portnoy. And I'll say that one of the defining moments that really kind of loosened me up was that after they announced that I was the new drummer, Mike reached out to me and congratulated me. And AJ's son reached out to me and congratulated me, and they both told me, how happy they were for me. And as soon as I got those messages from Mike and from AJ's son, it kind of was like, okay, I have their blessing. This can go well. And then fortunately, the fan base, they embraced me with open arms and everything went smoothly. So once we got rolling, the pressure was started to kind of lift away. But definitely when I first got it, I was nervous. Like I said, Portnoy and AJ, they're two of my heroes. So sitting in the seat that they sat in was a little scary.
And then, but then you became undaunted. Ari doesn't know the joke. He doesn't get the joke. It's an Adrenaline Mob song. Anyway. It's an Adrenaline Mob song. Now we can't talk about Adrenaline Mob without at least touching on David Z, who was the bass player and died very tragically in the accident back in 2017. But I want to try and keep things as light as possible. You know, I kind of want to know what your favorite David Z story is from touring, recording, show, what just some great, like greatest memory that you had with him.
Oof. That is really tricky. Dave, if anybody who knew Dave will tell you that man was like one of the most alive people on the planet. He was a character. He was always turned on. He was just the happiest and most just energized person 24/7. 24/7. I mean, you know, 3 a.m, you'd be ready to pass out, and he's grabbing an acoustic guitar, bouncing around the bus, trying to have a sing along. But I think one of the things that really got me about him. So when I first joined Adrenaline Mob, I told you I went through this whole audition process. I filmed a bunch of videos, and then I went in and recorded. When I did all that, I only actually met Mike in person. When I went into the studio, it was just myself and Mike. And then once I got the gig, I only got the gig about 2 weeks before we went in to record the album.
Oh, wow.
So they had written the song, you know, the songs were the pre-production was already pretty much done. It was just, hey, let's go in and let's get all your drum parts, you know, figured out, you know, tweak them and work them out and everything. And like I said, Russ was out with TSO at the time, and David Z was also in TSO.
Yes.
So when I joined, they notified me that I got the gig sometime in October, I think. And I went in and recorded the album. It was like mid-October, they let me know, and I went in to record the drums for the album at the beginning of November, 2 weeks later. And it was just myself and Mike. So I did this whole process for the first couple of months where the only person I met in person was Mike Orlando. So when we finally got to meet each other, it was actually at the band's first photo shoot. That was the first time that the band was actually going to all meet. And I'll never forget, because we showed up, and David was the life of the party. Like I said, super high energy, and he kind of took over, like hijacked the whole photo shoot. He had this idea of making a video, because he was also a new member. He and I joined around the same time. So he came up with this idea of, let's make an initiation video where it's like a mob initiation, and you guys got to hit us with a baseball bat and all this stuff. And everybody embraced it. So he kind of hijacked the whole photo shoot, and we filmed this whole video. And then like he stayed up all night the next night editing it. And, you know, they whacked us with this rubber baseball bat, and he made all this like fake blood come out and everything. And it was this whole wacky initiation video. And it was so funny, because the photographer, he pulled me aside. He goes, "You guys have been playing together a long time, haven't you? Because you guys are like this." And I just looked at the photographer and I said, "Man, we all just met right now." So it was like a really cool thing to see him just kind of in his element, kind of just take over, and everybody loved it. I mean, we got all the photos we needed, so it's not like he screwed up the photo shoot.
Right.
But he just kind of took over, and he was so full of all these ideas, and it was cool that everybody just embraced it and let him run with it, you know.
That's awesome. And that definitely speaks to from, you know, what I have heard. You know, I unfortunately never had the chance to meet him. I haven't even seen you guys live yet. I should just, but you know, that definitely is pretty in line with all of the stories that I had heard about him just being this phenomenal person. You know, it was definitely I still remember reading the articles about it, and you know, it killed me. I mean, it's you know, heavy metal, everybody's, you know, it's a family thing, because everybody's all these heavy metal guys are so outcast in the world, and we all find solace in each other. And that was
right.
Now, do you guys, I know that, you know, everybody's kind of off doing their own thing and stuff like that. Do you guys have any plans to do anything at all?
I haven't heard of any plans, to be honest. I can't say yes or no. No one's really discussed anything yet. I mean, it's definitely, after what happened, it's it's a little hard for everybody.
Yeah.
We all really really love Dave and not just Dave but also Janet, our tour manager.
Yes.
And
Yep.
we it was just a situation that it's impossible to forget. So I can't I can't speak for anybody else, but so I don't know how everybody feels, but we have been in touch. We're all friends, we all talk, but no one's suggested anything to me as of yet. So I mean, I won't say no, but I haven't heard of anything to date.
Damn, I was hoping for like a drumming in the trenches exclusive here. I was hoping you're gonna be like, hey, so real quick though,
you heard it here.
You heard it here first.
If I had something to share, I would, but I haven't heard any. I haven't heard any news or ideas or anything like that.
Well, I definitely hope so, because I feel like, King of the Ring, right? That was the album that you would, that was.
Well, the album was We the People, but King of the Ring was
yep.
King of the Ring was the first single, yeah.
But I remember hearing that and being completely blown away, and I would really love to hear, a continuation of that. According to the Wikipedia page, Russell Allen is your bass player, so I don't. I don't know.
He's taking on multiple roles now, man.
Yeah, I mean, hey, he might have to take a couple of the rings off and stop carrying the baseball bat around the stage, but he can make it work, right? All right, so let's switch gears. This
is my favorite part.
It is his favorite part.
This is my favorite part. I'm a huge gear nerd. Brian's the encyclopedia of all musical stuff.
I am a gear nerd myself.
Already.
But we're to my favorite portion of the interview. Jordan, I want you to break down all your gear. If you need to plug any brand that you're an endorsee for, go right ahead. But yeah, break your kit down, what you use, what you're playing with, all the fun geeky stuff that I'm into.
So my kits are they're all DW. That's my studio recording kit, DW Collector Series, and my tour kit is a DW Performance Series. Right now I'm actually playing 2 up, 2 down. You can't really see the second tom, it's off to the side. But my configuration changes depending on what band I'm playing with. I mean, when I played with Adrenaline Mob, it was the drum kit.
You had everything everywhere.
Yeah, it was massive. 4 bass drums. It was nuts. So my configuration changes, but my home base is usually either 1 up, 2 down, or 2 up, 2 down. I use Gibraltar Stealth Rack because I use a lot of cymbals. So for me, I mean, the way I do the Stealth Rack, I mean, you can kind of see a little piece of it over there. It's double braced. So it's really, really heavy, but I hit really hard, so that's kind of necessary.
Hey, but you don't have to break it down, right? So it doesn't matter.
No, I mean, so having to carry it definitely sucks because it's heavy, and I do not enjoy when I have to carry it up like a flight of steps or something. That's no fun. But I use a lot of cymbals. I mean, I use 4 crashes, 2 chinas, 3 splashes, hi-hat. I have a stack. I've got so many cymbals on there that if I brought 12 or 13 cymbal stands with me, it would just be such a pain to weave them all in and out of each other, with the legs. And then it also would increase the footprint, which I try to keep my footprint as small as I can because, one day I might be playing on a really big stage and another day I might be playing in a tiny club. It depends on who I'm working with for that time. So doing the rack allows me to keep it as tight as possible while still letting the kit be as big as I want it. I use currently I'm using all Zildjian cymbals. As far as sticks, Vader all the way. I've been a Vader artist for a few years now, but I've been playing Vader sticks since I was a kid. I've been playing Vader 1As for, I can't even remember how long. It's probably been somewhere between 15 and 20 years that I've been playing Vader 1As. And I love them. I use Evans heads. I'm also a Evans artist. They're just the greatest. They're so supportive. I've changed my layout for them over time as they release new stuff. Now, I love the UV2 tom heads. They're phenomenal. I've just started using them on both of my kits. And I use the EC reverse dots on the snare and the EMAD 2 on the kick. And then the one thing that I actually have been using a lot lately, my kits are DW, but I have a large, it's kind of dark back there, but you can see on the wall there's a pretty large snare drum collection. Because I do a lot of session work, so having a variety is pretty important for me. But my go-to, I recently, last year, was contacted by a company called Sky Percussion. It's a boutique company out of Germany. And nice. I now endorse their snare drum. They don't make kits; they only make snares.
That's pretty cool.
And they sent me one of their snares, and it's phenomenal. So I've been using that thing. It's my go-to touring snare now, and it's my go-to for a lot of the recording sessions I do too, unless I need something very specific. So yeah, I mean, Evans and Vader and Sky Percussion, and I also endorse Drum Tax. They're phenomenal dampening company. And
nice.
But yeah, and then DW, Zildjian, and Gibraltar.
What's up with that big ass bell, dude? Like that's I can see it from here.
The Mega Bell, that's crazy. I love that thing. The Zildjian Mega Bell. Yeah, that ride
can't miss it. That's for sure.
That thing cuts through like you wouldn't believe. It's my favorite ride of all time. Not good for everything, you know. If I'm playing for a pop artist or something like that, it's just not what I'm gonna want to do. Yeah, not what I'm gonna want for that. But in all of my rock and metal situations, that thing is my go-to. I love that cymbal. I've been playing those for years.
And here's my friend.
Yeah.
Hello, Kitty. She thinks that I'm doing important stuff. Actually, I think you're the first. Ari, you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's the first Zildjian artist we've had on here.
Well, I'm not actually an official.
Well,
I'm not an official
somebody that prefers Zildjians exclusively.
Gotcha. I've been playing for a long time. I've been playing Zildjian for a really long time. I just, I weaved in and out. I played a whole bunch of different cymbals over the years, and there's a whole bunch that I love. But over time, I just found that there were certain lines from Zildjian that I just fell in love with, and I've stuck with them ever since. The majority of it is A customs, but there's a few other things weaved in. Like a couple of wacky little add-ons and stacks and stuff like that.
And what do you got for a double bass pedal?
I use a Pearl Demon Drive.
Ooh.
Very good.
Yeah,
strap or chain?
Direct drive.
Direct. Oh,
drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Direct drive.
That's the one bastion that I have yet to cross. I had a strap drive and went back down to double chain, but
I was using double chain for a really long time. I was using DW 5000 for years and years and years. And then once, the direct drive thing, I mean, it's been around for a long time with like Axis and all that, but I feel like it started becoming really prominent and popular 7 or 8 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And once it started coming out a little bit, I got the itch to try it because I was using the same pedals forever, and I had the itch to try something new. And the irony is that a lot of the companies that are making the double bass pedals, not all of them make their models for lefties. You can't find everything for a lefty.
Yep.
So it's hard.
or it's $150 more expensive.
Yeah, I mean, DW has a direct drive pedal that's really expensive. I'm sure it's great, but they don't make it for lefties, so I couldn't even try it. But the Demon Drive, it's super quality pedal. It's just smooth as butter, and it's available for lefties, which I love. And I also like too that I guess a lot of drummers, everybody has their preference, right? Some prefer the long board, some prefer standard footboard with the heel plate. The Demon Drive is reversible. You can turn it into a longboard or standard. So I liked that I was able to. I liked that in that pedal, I'm able to kind of experiment with a whole bunch of different feels. And I usually stick to standard. I don't go to the longboard thing very often, but I like knowing that if I need to, or if there's a certain scenario where it's beneficial, I can, and I don't have to have a second set of pedals to do it.
Right. Oh, yeah. You just got to do what I did. I got the offset, the centered, the double
the offset
pedal that's centered. Yeah. I'm still getting used to it, but
I've never played one before. I've seen them, but I never played them.
It's interesting. It's supposed to be more ergonomical, and they have a direct drive conversion kit. But the plus side is since it's symmetrical, it's already left-handed and right-handed, so I don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
right.
It works out.
That's cool.
I'll let you know how it goes. I'm still undecided. I got my strap drive pedal as a backup just in case I get pissed off.
Gotcha. It's a feel thing, man. That's when I got them. I knew that I had to give it at least a couple of weeks to even a month before I really made my decision on them, because especially after playing the same pedal for probably 10 to 15 years. It was, that's a major change, because that's one of the few things that, if I'm doing a gig or a recording session, whatever I'm doing, if I have to use a house kit or whatever, I'm fine with doing all that. But I always travel with my own pedals. I always travel with my pedals. So very rarely over the course of the last 20 years have I played other pedals. So making the switch was definitely a big change. But after like 2 to 3 weeks, I realized I was more comfortable with it, and I've been using them ever since.
Hell yeah.
Beauty.
Good deal. I think that's a good transition. That's a very good transition.
It's the third time you've said that, Ari. Get on with it.
That's okay. So 2020, since you were in New York, that was just the hub of COVID crisis. Now we're into 2021. You mentioned a couple times that you guys were on lockdown, and that's seen it on the news, so you couldn't really get out to gig, meet with your bands, even have face-to-face time with family. Now 2021's around. COVID's kind of not as bad. What do you have any big plans, goals, stuff like that for 2021?
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, Sugarmore is definitely pushing forward big time. Well, we're going to release the next single, and then we're going to start writing some originals. Voices of Extreme is also in the next couple of months going to go in to record a new album, and then hopefully the goal is to have that album done before the end of the year so that 2022 can have some touring. I've spent a lot of the pandemic writing music with my brother. My brother and I are building a new project. I don't have too much info on it yet. We're still developing it, but we've been doing a lot of writing, so we're going to release something new at some point. And been spending most of the time doing a lot of different session work. That's been fortunate that I'm able to, having my own studio in my home, I'm able to do sessions remotely. And now, gigs are starting to come up. I've got a couple of for hired things set up with some artists. One of the ones I'm looking forward to the most, though, is I'm going to be going to play a Sturgis pre-party with Eric Martin from Mr. Big.
Oh, hell yeah!
Yeah, so that'll be cool. And I played with Eric once before. It's super fun. He's awesome, and the rest of his band is actually the guitar player and the bass player from Trickster. So it's really cool to play with those guys. So I'll be going out to Sturgis, South Dakota in August to go do that festival with them. So that'll be fun to finally get out and do a nice festival and get in front of a nice crowd.
Kind of doing the Vince Neil thing with his solo band. He's got a crazy drummer and then a guitar player and a bass player from another established band.
Zoltan, I love Zoltan.
Dude, that guy, I'm gonna send you some videos, man. This dude is jack wild.
I love him.
You could do that.
I love him. Zoltan. So ironically, I played my old band J-Rad opened for Vince Neil years ago, and I remember we were doing our sound check, and Zoltan, I didn't know, but Zoltan was standing behind me watching while we were doing the sound check. And after the sound check was over, he came over to me and introduced himself, and he brought me behind his kit, and we both sat there and traded ideas for a while and showed each other tricks and all sorts of cool stuff. So there's some of the things that I do were absolutely inspired by him. And
hell yeah.
One of the things that I do a lot is I like to kick my hi-hat cymbal.
That was what I was going to ask, is if you could do that. I
like to kick my hi-hat, and I 100% got that from him. It was funny because we were, like I said, we were behind his kit hanging out and discussing all these ideas, and he started telling me that's one of the things that he does. And so when we went on before him, he was standing at the side of the stage watching, and I looked over and I saw him over there, and I said, all right, I'm just going to do this to be an idiot. And I just started kicking my hi-hat like crazy, and he was laughing hysterically. And that was the first time I ever did it at a show, was right next to him, and he knows that I totally stole it from him.
I don't know why, but I was really hoping for it, and then I fell. I don't know why. Like, that's a terrible thing to wish on anybody, but I was just kind of hoping for. Yeah, I kicked it once and fell, and then that was.
I did fall one time because I also when I do my drum solo, and sometimes even in the middle of the song where I have a break, I stand up on my throne and on my hi-hat stand. And I did have one time where I went to stand up in the middle of that solo, and I went down. It was not fun.
What a thunderous ending.
It was not fun. Not fun. Definitely not.
Man. Is it my turn, Ari?
Yes, it's your turn, Brian. This is your favorite part.
My favorite part. It's the only thing that I've contributed to the whole outline of the show. It's this little thing we do called a quick 8 counts. Pew, banner still not going to be there. So basically, this is
low budget.
I keep saying I'm going to do it, but I don't. I got iMovie. I'll figure it out eventually. So basically, I have written 8 questions. Okay. They're intended to be mildly rapid fire, more in the answer. Like, first thing that comes to mind. If it sparks a small, I'll say debate, because it's happened before. We'll go into a little bit of detail, but just kind of first thing that pops into your head. Are you ready, Jordan Cannata?
I'm ready, man.
All right. Number 1, name a drummer that you think is overrated.
Overrated. Me.
Oh, hell no. No, sir.
I was not expecting that.
You wouldn't be overrated if you were overrated. You wouldn't be on our show. We get the underrated people.
Well, at least you have a humble outlook on it.
Yeah.
All right. If I got to give one, let's go with Meg White.
Meg White. Okay, I'm okay with that answer. I'm okay with it. Sometimes there is such a thing as too simple. I'm 100% okay with it. Totally. I think I might know the answer to this next question. Name a drummer that you think is underrated. You kind of maybe touched on it at the very beginning.
You think I'm going to say Ringo? Ringo is one of them, but I'm going to give you another one. I'm going to say Sean Kinney from Alice in Chains.
Oh, yes.
I think that he is
I love that
highly
answer.
Underrated.
I've seen them play twice, and I just sat there and watch him the whole time. The way that he kind of sits back and just lets everything build over top.
He's just so smooth. He's just got this unique feel. He's super precise, but also super sludgy. And I mean, it's just another one of those guys who every single drum part for every single song is perfect. Those songs would not be better if you did anything different.
No.
And I mean, I've never heard somebody tell me that he wasn't a good drummer, but it's a name.
He's not brought it up enough in enough conversations.
Right. Like when people start talking about their favorite drummers, I almost never hear anybody mention his name, and he's just phenomenal.
Man, this is already going better than I expected. Dream collaboration. You're a session drummer. If you could collaborate with any artist, we'll say alive, because I mean, like, obviously everybody wants to collaborate with Freddie Mercury, but it can't happen.
Let's go with Slash.
All right.
All this man, Slash.
Yes,
get a hold of him.
Let's go with Slash.
Yeah, that's
Get going.
right there.
That would be pretty sick.
Hey, he does a lot of guest stuff too. Yeah. Hey, this dude right here.
We can make this happen.
Name a band that you love.
All right, that's Seven Dust.
I thought you were gonna say Sugarmore.
Well, I mean, I do, but no, Seven Dust.
And again, Morgan Rose, another number that I don't think gets enough recognition as what he is.
Agreed.
And to be able to scream as well, like, that's nuts.
Yeah. He's definitely, in recent years, I would say once I reached my late teens, early 20s is when I really started to kind of discover him, and he's been one of my biggest influences since that time. I found them a little late, unfortunately. I kind of missed their prime when they were doing the first album and the second album, Home. But I found them a couple years after that, and he was like an eye opener for me, and he's been a big influence ever since. And that band in general.
I tell you what, you like that band a lot. Daughtry just did a cover of Hunger Strike. And LeJohn sang on it.
It's killer. It's killer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Amazing.
Dang. I thought I was gonna let the famous guy in on some knowledge, but he's already know. I guess when you have nothing to do but play music, you kind of listen to music all the time.
I listen to a lot of music, man.
That's okay. Flip side of that, name a band that you just hate, can't stand.
Ooh. Band that I can't stand. That is really tough.
Somebody's yelling.
I'm gonna go with one that a lot of people will probably disagree with, and I'll get a lot of flack for this, but I'm not really into Nirvana.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's fair.
We had to let it digest, and we're like, okay, but I mean, like, Dave Grohl is like.
I'm not knocking any of their abilities at all.
Okay.
None of them.
Okay.
And I'm not knocking that they wrote some great songs, but I never connected with them the way that other people did, especially because I did really get into that scene, the Seattle scene. I love Alice in Chains and Soundgarden and all that, but for some reason, I just never connected with Nirvana's music. And that's why I had to think about it, because I don't really hate them. I never connected with them the way that the rest of the world did.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair.
And that's, I'm okay with that. This one's my favorite one to ask because it gets everybody really embarrassed. Name a guilty pleasure band that nobody would think that you listen to, but you actually really, really love.
I don't really have any guilty pleasures. I'm open about all of it.
That's very fair.
All right.
I mean, I guess that's a good thing.
I'll give you two. One that I don't think is necessarily one that I just think people would find surprising because because most people know me for heavy music, and then one that a lot of people might give me flack for. So one that people wouldn't expect would be Tower of Power. I love Tower of Power.
All right.
Huge Tower of Power fan. A lot of that funk stuff I get a lot of influence.
Yeah.
From that. A band that a lot of people in my heavy world give me flack for, but I love them. I'm ready for it. I love Nickelback, man.
Oh,
thank you.
I love Nickelback.
Thank you. I will die on that hill, dude. I don't care. I don't give a shit.
I love them. They are amazing. And Daniel Adair is another really underrated drummer.
Yes. Simply because he's in Nickelback. No, I will tell people, and I have gotten shit for it too, Jordan, trust me. But if you look past like the 6 songs that are on the radio, at least from a musical standpoint, like you can say whatever you want about Chad's voice, musically solid.
It's good.
Listen, they are perfect live. If you've seen them live, they are picture perfect. They don't make a single mistake. But and then yeah, a lot of people. I mean, I like all their stuff. I'm a big fan. But you know, like you said, a lot of people get caught up in the songs like Photograph and Rockstar. But if you delve into their stuff, and they have some really heavy, awesome
especially
music.
I think
Side of the Bullet and For the River, those songs are amazing.
The Act 3, The Betrayal. Of, Feed that whole Feed the Machine album was great.
Killer. It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think they care. They have bazillions of fans and they're loving life. But it's definitely one of the few bands that, as I'm traveling through my little corner of the rock and metal world, that for whatever reason I get flack for being a fan of theirs. But damn, they're good, man. They're so good.
Listen, all right. So now that that's out there, we're gonna go and meet you at your house because I see you got guns in the corner over there, and we're just gonna hold out and wait for it to happen. I mean, we're just ready. Over there on the left, or you're right.
By the snare drums?
No, the complete other side.
Those aren't guns, Brian. No.
Oh, okay. Nope. Okay. Nope. Yep, right there. Oh. Damn.
Who puts guns in a music?
Yeah, like right there. Yeah. Right where your finger. Come on, you can't tell me that doesn't look like a shotgun, okay? Come on now.
It's a microphone.
What, but why? What purpose does it serve?
I hate life. This is what I get for stepping out of my bound. This is what I get.
This is why I don't observe the landscape.
Back to the 8 count. No, this is my part of the show, damn it. Give a young drummer just starting out 3 words of advice that's going to be most helpful to him.
3 words.
Gets a little introspective there.
It's a good one to get stuck on.
It's hard to narrow it down to only 3 words.
Go to Berkeley.
Go to Berkeley. Yes. Love to play. Love to play because honestly,
I'm getting that tattooed on my forehead.
Because honestly, I think a lot of people, and I've had moments like this too, when you do take it seriously, it becomes really hard not to get too focused on the business end of it, the job end of it, the work end of it, am I gaining ground? Do I have enough followers? Am I making enough money? It gets really, really hard to avoid those thoughts. We all go through it because it's a struggle to make it in this world. It's not it's not easy to get out there, and it's not the kind of thing where, you're just going to become super successful overnight. And I've definitely seen a lot of people kind of quit, I think, and mainly because they stop loving it. They forget why they're playing it, and you gotta be doing this because you enjoy it. That's really what it comes down to. If you're not loving playing music, then you need to change your thought process. Or
change your situation.
Because maybe you're just not liking it because maybe you're in a situation where you're just not making music that you love. Well, then you know what? Go make some music you're passionate about. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the scenario is, if there's money behind it or if it's going to tour in a year or whatever. You need to make music that you enjoy. That's the way what it all comes down to, because that's why we all get into it in the first place.
Yeah,
I mean, I've never met somebody who said I became a musician because
for the chicks, man.
Because I wanted a 401k plan. It's like it doesn't work like that. It's you get into it because you really enjoy it. So, and I've seen a lot of people forget that over the years, and I think that at certain points we all do. I've definitely had moments where I've gotten a little flustered or even a little jaded, and then had to kind of rein it in. So
yep. Ari knows too well what's going on right now with me.
I do. This is so appropriate. I love it.
I know.
This is a perfect conversation for this moment.
But honestly, though, from a not me. I'm not. I mean, I'm 28. I'm still relatively young, but you know, from a perspective of somebody that's just starting, that's 150,000% the best. But other than practice, that's about the best advice that you can give somebody starting out is to do it for the right reasons.
Yep. Yeah, you got to do it because you love it. And even when practicing too, that's another thing that I always stress because I do teach a lot also. And the one thing that I always kind of stress is, yeah, you want to practice, right? Repetition is everything. But at the same time, you also do need to carve out time to just have fun with it. Sometimes, you know, like sometimes you can give a student their curriculum, right? And they'll get so focused on going through the page of this book, going through this, going through that, this technique, this rudiment, whatever it may be. But you always got to carve out a little bit of time, even if it's just 10 minutes, to just say, drop all of it and just play.
Yep.
Because that's where you're going to get the joy, and that's what's going to keep you in it. And that's what it's all about. I mean, music's about feeling. It's about how it makes you feel. I mean, and it's all about emotion. It really is. And a lot of times we all get caught up in the technicality of it, the math of it, you know, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. But in the end, it's all about emotion. Whether it's a lyric that gives you that emotion or a melody or a rhythm, it's all about emotion. So if you're not giving yourself the time to just let those emotions out, then you're not giving yourself the chance to express yourself.
Yeah.
Bam.
That's heavy stuff right there.
Believe it or not, there is one more question. I feel like that's a perfect spot to end. I wish I would have asked that last if I'd have known we were going to go like that. But give me an unpopular opinion. Like start a fight, start an argument. What do you got? An
unpopular opinion?
Yeah. Other than Nickelback being good.
Because I was about to say, I thought I gave you one already with Nickelback.
We agreed with you, though. That's, I mean.
Unpopular opinion. I'm going to go with. That specific techniques. I'm sticking in drum world here. Mm-hmm. Don't go too crazy with learning specific techniques, like being locked into a certain grip, a certain technique. I've seen a lot because I've seen a lot of, especially teachers, who they're very, very strict with students. Right? It's like this way, right? Palms down. Yep. And everybody gets caught up in this, German grip, American grip, French grip, what it is, and then there are definitely general guidelines you want to follow, right? Because you want to, you don't want to hurt yourself. You don't want to clamp down on the stick too much. You want the stick to do the work for you. You want to have loose wrists and molar and all these different things. But I've had a lot of discussions with other teachers about how you need to play, this way, that way, this way, whatever it may be. But no two people are the same. My body is not the same shape as anybody else's body. Your body is not the same shape as anybody else's. Your hands move differently. Your arms move differently. So learning the general guidelines is definitely important so that you learn how to get the proper leverage on a stick, how to use the least amount of energy and still get what you need to out of your drum parts. Mm-hmm. But if you go too specific into it, you might actually force your body to start doing something that it's not naturally designed to do.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you guys aren't arguing with me, so I guess it's not that unpopular of an opinion.
Well, I think so. Listen, I didn't necessarily mean start an argument with us, because I mean, Ari is the more traditionally. He likes to say that he's book smart and I'm street smart. When it comes to drumming. Like I literally learned by watching, and he went to school for it, stuff like that. So I mean, you're basically making me feel better about myself of not having learned the proper techniques. So
it definitely is an unpopular opinion, because through my entire education, you're either playing traditional grip or match grip. Doesn't matter. You got to do it this way. You can't change it. And now play flam. I mean, and just trying to do that, it makes it so stringent on every individual person. You make every individual person play the exact same thing, and it doesn't work for everybody. And then oh, look, now I got tennis elbow or carpal tunnel. Like, nah, you got to play what's comfortable, but also have the same kind of fundamentals built into that grip. Yeah,
exactly.
So I'll agree with that being unpopular.
Having those general guidelines, but so because for me, I'm a weird hybrid. I kind of change the way that I grip and approach the sticks depending on what I'm doing.
Or how you're standing.
Or I'm standing. Because like for me, like I know a lot of drummers, will play palms down the whole time, or some will play palms up the whole time. Me, if I'm over here, I'm palms down, and as I twist, my body naturally switches to more French grip.
Yeah.
As my arm goes, it naturally twists. That's the way my shoulder pivots. So telling me that I would have to do it one way or the other
and force
natural for me. And for me, I feel like that would create problems because my body just doesn't move that way. So, every single person is different. I mean, how could anyone expect, let's say, somebody who's, really tall and skinny to use the same technique as someone who's, really short and girthy? They're not designed the same way, and they're not going to set their kit up the same way either. So how can you expect them to use the exact same motions when their bodies are totally different?
That's, you have taught me one very important thing during that, in that I had no fucking idea that there was that many different types of grips. So I think I need to go on Google and figure it out.
There's a lot
like
you can learn about
I didn't know that this was like only one of the ways that you can play. Like I'm palms up like all the time. Like,
gotcha.
This feels fucking weird to me.
So this way would be considered French.
Okay. Well, I'm Scandinavian, so that doesn't make any sense. So we're getting to the end of the show, almost an hour and a half later. This was a great interview. We very much appreciate it. But this is the time now where you get the floor, even though this interview is about you anyways. But whatever you want to plug, companies, websites, social media, whatever you got, now's the time. Boom, go.
So, I mean, you could find me everywhere, jordancannata.com, Facebook at Jordan Cannata Official, Instagram at Jordan Cannata, YouTube is at Jordan Cannata, pretty much Jordan Cannata on everything. You'll find me on all the social media sites. I also, for Sugarmore, it's the same thing. You go to Sugarmore Band pretty much on anything, Facebook, Instagram, Voices of Extreme, same thing, just at Voices of Extreme. Like I said, I endorse Vader, I endorse Evans, Drum Tax, and Sky Percussion. Love all those companies, so I can't recommend their products and more highly. They're just phenomenal. Just keep an eye out for videos on YouTube and announcements from, all the different bands. Sugarmore. Hopefully Adrenaline Mob one day. We'll see.
I really want this to happen.
I'm not going to say no, but like I said, I don't have any information.
But I'm not going to say yes. Yeah.
Yeah, no info. But, hey, maybe you'll get some answers out of one of those guys maybe one day. Who knows?
If I had the ability to talk to Russell Allen or Mike Orlando, I'd be totally fine with that. But I'm some schmuck working in Lansing, fucking Michigan, so I'm not counting on it. Just saying.
Hopefully one day. I really, really love the album that we all created together. It's one of my favorite things that I've ever done. So, everything that happened pretty shortly after, so we didn't really even get a full chance to get it out there. So hopefully one day.
Yeah.
There we go.
Good deal.
All right, you want to take us home?
Sure. Well, thank you everybody for viewing episode 9 of Drumming in the Trenches. If you made it the whole hour and a half through this, it's been a pleasure with Jordan Cannata. Thank you so much for tuning in with us from New York. Man, it's a long distance, but it feels like you're right here in the room with us. From me, Ari Roynella, and from Brian Knickerbocker, we want to say thank you and keep drumming. Yeah.
Thank you again, Jordan. We appreciate it, man.
Thank you, guys. This was fun. This is awesome.
All right.